Hey there and welcome to BingeBot. We recap all the latest and greatest TV shows to help keep you in the loop. Today we dig into the history of one of television's favorite anti-heroes with Dexter Original Sin Season 1. Set years before the events of the original series, Original Sin sees Dexter reflect on his early life and adolescence and his rookie years with the Miami police when his murderous urges started to manifest in full. Let's waste no time and get right into our recap, starting with Episode 1, And in the Beginning. As he clings to life after being shot by his son, Dexter Morgan, a serial killer with an ethical code, is rushed to the hospital, where doctors successfully resuscitate him. Bloodied and barely conscious, he stabilizes while his life flashes before his eyes. Caught between life and death, his mind pulls him back to a distant memory, the memory of his birth, as his mother fights through labor. Right after that memory, Dexter's mind jumps forward to his youth. Now a medical student at the University of Miami, Dexter's intelligent, quiet, and detached. While his classmates react with discomfort to cadavers, Dexter approaches each autopsy table with fascination. Despite his academic brilliance, something's missing, but Harry, the man who adopted Dexter and also a homicide detective, insists that medicine could be a way to channel the impulses they both know that Dexter has. Wanting to help his son socialize, Harry insists that his daughter, Deborah, take her brother to a college party. And once there, while trying his best to look normal, Dexter steps in when a drunk classmate tries to take advantage of Deborah. Moved by a primal instinct, Dexter beats the boy to the ground and nearly grabs a knife lying nearby. And though he doesn't use it, it becomes clear that his dark impulses are growing stronger. During a hunting trip with Harry, Dexter explains the incident at the party and the urge to kill that he constantly has.
Then I saw his blood, and everything became really clear. There was a knife on the bar. More than anything in my whole life, I wanted to take that knife.
Shocked by the confession, Harry suffers a heart attack. While at the hospital, Harry keeps getting worse inexplicably, and Dexter notices an unsettling pattern involving a nurse named Mary, as multiple patients under her care keep dying, apparently from natural causes. Intrigued, he investigates her office and finds a box filled with obituaries, each of them matching a death on her patient list. After that overwhelming evidence, Dexter also discovers that the nurse has been giving his father a potassium nitrate solution, which, when used regularly, mimics a natural decline in health. Fueled by rage, Dexter's determined to act, and after Harry's supposed blessing, he prepares for his first killing ritual and finally embraces the darkness within him.
Are you kidding?
After confronting the nurse, he methodically and calmly kills her with multiple stabs before throwing her body into a swamp to be eaten by alligators. And as his moral code begins to form, Dexter realizes that he might be able to kill with a purpose, such as putting an end to other morally corrupt serial killers like Mary. With Harry recovering and the poisonous nurse gone, Dexter starts an internship at the Miami Metro Police as a forensic assistant. Surrounded by crime and death, he finally finds the perfect place to fulfill his darkest impulses. Episode 2, Kid in a Candy Store. On his first day at Miami Metro Police, Dexter feels both thrilled and anxious, especially as he gets to know his no-nonsense boss, Tanya, the head of the forensics department. Right away, Dexter's confronted with the harsh reality of his new job, as the team's alerted to the kidnapping of Jimmy Powell, the son of Judge Powell. Given that he's the new guy, Dexter's assigned to review old cases related to drug activity instead, and as he goes through shelves of non-digitized files, he finds a space where he can finally immerse himself in past crimes. Fascinated, he begins to fantasize that any one of the killers in those folders could be his next target. Later, Dexter's invited for drinks by Detective Angel Batista, where he hears the tragic story of a bartender named Rene Carballo. After borrowing money from a man named Tony Ferrer, Rene was unable to pay his debt, and as a result, Ferrer killed Rene's mother, which eventually led Rene to take his own life out of guilt. Upon hearing the names, Dexter recalls reviewing their case files earlier that day, and quietly decides that Ferrer could be his next target. And that decision's confirmed shortly after, as the police department receives a severed finger, and after analysis, it is revealed that the finger belongs to Jimmy Powell. Knowing that he can't act on this case because the entire department is involved, Dexter realized that his best option is indeed to go after Ferrer, hoping to deliver justice to the Carballo family. Episode 3, Miami Vice. At the police station, a conference is held regarding the ongoing kidnapping of Jimmy Powell. Given that Judge Powell has a history of making tough decisions against the drug cartels, everyone believes that they're behind the abduction. Frustrated that he can't help rescue Jimmy, Dexter begins to investigate Tony Ferrer. Sneaking into his house looking for clues, Dexter finds a notebook detailing Farrer's loans. And upon further examination, he discovers that those marked as having repaid their debt are actually either dead or missing, conveying that Farrer kills those who don't pay him back. With this knowledge, Dexter tells Harry that Farrer meets the criteria of their moral code, meaning that he deserves to be killed. Although disappointed that Dexter still craves more after his first kill, Harry reluctantly gives him permission to proceed, insisting on the importance of complete honesty going forward.
Do everything the way we practiced, no shortcuts, and no fucking trophies. Did you get Nurse Mary's earrings back? The plan's in motion. Go on.
Ready to fulfill his desires, Dexter sneaks into Farrer's house and after a brief struggle, knocks him unconscious. Once restrained, Farrer is forced to endure Dexter's ritual, being confronted with the full weight of his crimes before meeting his end with a single fatal slash to the chest. Finally, just as he did with the nurse, Dexter then disposes of the body in the swamp filled with alligators, hoping that they will devour all of the evidence. Episode 4. Fender Bender. Tragically, the search for Jimmy ends in despair when he's found hanging from a bridge, leading the police to rush in, but chaos erupts as reporters and curious neighbors swarm around. At the same time, the captain of the homicide division, Aaron Spencer, assigns Detective Maria LaGuerta to investigate a separate homicide in the typically vibrant Coconut Grove neighborhood. Seeing Dexter distressed by Jimmy's tragic fate, Harry requests that Dexter be brought along. Impressively, Dexter ends up being a useful addition to the team. Finding the victim to be a young man named Blake Kirsten, he concludes that the killer wasn't motivated by drugs or money, but by pleasure. To prove this to the skeptical LaGuerta, Dexter points out that Blake still had his money on him and that there was no blood splattered around his corpse, indicating that the killer wanted to experience the pleasure of strangling Blake and then fled the scene immediately after satisfying his murderous urges. Around the same time in the Jimmy Powell case, the team discovers that the boy was killed with an ice pick to the neck and the wound was cauterized with a car lighter. This, combined with a lack of cartel activity in the city, forces the team to reconsider the motive of the murder as the theory of a drug war starts to lose strength. Wanting to satisfy his own murderous urges, Dexter visits the archive to channel his disturbed feelings by digging through unresolved cases, searching for a new savage murderer to target. Making his decision, Dexter chooses Anthony Mad Dog Moretti, a mafia hitman linked to dozens of killings. Now living in Miami, Mad Dog has avoided conviction due to the lack of evidence. After entering Mad Dog's house unnoticed, Dexter finds a shredded photo, and once he reassembles it, he finds it to be of a man named Omar Reyes, a key witness in an upcoming money laundering trial. Realizing Omar is likely Mad Dog's next target, Dexter knows that he must act fast. Sneaking back into Mad Dog's house at night, Dexter knocks him unconscious and prepares his signature kill room. However, while Dexter decorates the space with photos of the victims, Mad Dog wakes up just in time before Dexter could tie him to the table. After a brief struggle, Mad Dog manages to overpower Dexter and he escapes into the street. Understanding that he can't just let him get away, Dexter gives chase, but before he can catch him, a speeding vehicle slams into Mad Dog, abruptly ending the pursuit and leaving Dexter horrified that he has botched his kill. Episode 5. F is for F up. After Mad Dog's death, Dexter hurries to erase all of the evidence from his failed kill. Despite being furious with Dexter for allowing one of his victims to escape, Harry permits him to go to work and instructs him to take fingerprints from the driver who had hit Mad Dog just to ensure that he doesn't recognize Dexter. Though nervous, Dexter does as told and confirms that the driver doesn't recognize him, which is further confirmed when LaGuerta concludes that Mad Dog's death was just a typical traffic incident. While drinking alone later that day, Harry curses himself over his failure in the courtroom that allowed a vicious serial killer named Levi Reed to walk away free. That night, a drunk Harry ends up at Reed's house, prepared to take justice into his own hands by shooting him. But thankfully, just as he's about to pull the trigger, Dexter, who had been secretly following Harry since he had left the bar, intervenes by injecting him with a tranquilizer. Much to Harry's surprise, he wakes up naked and tied to a table in their own home, surrounded by Dexter's signature plastic sheets. Showing him his elaborate setup, Dexter demonstrates that he's learned from his mistake with Mad Dog and that from now on, he'll sedate his victims with horse tranquilizer to ensure that they never wake up in the middle of the process. Having proven his point, Dexter releases Harry and assures him that he no longer has to worry about Reed, as he'll make him pay for all of his crimes. Episode 6. The Joy of Killing. As she packs her car for a trip with her son Nicky, Becca Spencer, Captain Spencer's ex-wife, finds herself suddenly attacked. Knocked unconscious and tied up, she's left powerless as the attacker kidnaps Nicky. an abduction that strongly resembles that of Jimmy Powell, conveying that it's been done by the same person. Later, at the forensics department, Dexter's called to a new crime scene where the victim shows signs of restraint and suffocation with a plastic bag that was deliberately punctured to prolong his suffering. Although the method differs from earlier murders, Dexter believes it's the same killer from the Coconut Grove case, since he's targeting isolated victims whom no one would miss.
Each kill has been more refined, more intimate. It's evolving.
Not long after, Captain Spencer gets the news about the kidnapping of his son, Nicky. Although Becca only remembers that the attacker was hooded, Dexter remains hopeful, noting that they might have time to find Nicky, as Jimmy Powell wasn't found until 12 days after his abduction. During the briefing, the team finds no leads except for a potential link to cartel figure Rafael Campos, previously targeted by both Spencer and Powell. Meanwhile, Nicky regains consciousness in the same grim cell that was once used to hold Jimmy, confirming that he was indeed abducted by the same person. Later that night, still determined to take out Levi Reed, Dexter makes his move when Reed stumbles outside of a bar. Using the horse tranquilizer, he drugs Reed and brings him to his kill room, where the helpless man wakes up naked and restrained. While Dexter presents photos of Reed's victims, the latter confesses to all of them, but he also provokes Dexter by saying that he enjoys killing just as much as he does. Calmly agreeing, Dexter clarifies that the difference between them is that he adheres to a moral code that prevents him from killing innocent people. Right after, Dexter kills Levi with one strong stab to the chest. Given that this is Dexter's third kill, he's now officially a serial killer, making it more important than ever to destroy all of the evidence as quickly as possible, leading him to set out to dispose of the body in the same swamp as his previous victims. Upon arriving, however, Dexter finds that the area is crawling with police, and for his misfortune, Tony Farrer's severed arm has surfaced, a massive clue that could expose Dexter's secrets. Episode 7. The Big Bad Body Problem. Pretending to be there on official forensic work, Dexter heads straight for the severed arm, which thankfully has yet to be identified. Realizing that his fingerprints are all over the arm, Dexter acts fast by faking a sudden alligator attack and claims the arm was dragged into the water and eaten. With the evidence now gone, the investigation is abruptly suspended. Still carrying Levi Reed's body in his trunk, Dexter later drags the corpse into a dumpster, buries it under a pile of trash, and waits for the collection truck, hoping that the city dump will quietly consume his latest victim. Meanwhile, while trapped in his cell, Nicky discovers a paint can lid and attempts to turn it into a weapon. Unfortunately though, after attacking his mysterious kidnapper, he only manages to scratch him. In retaliation, the kidnapper cuts off one of Nicky's fingers, just as he did with Jimmy Powell. Sometime later, a box arrives at Miami Metro containing Nicky's severed finger. Although Dexter notices what might be the kidnapper's blood on the packaging, lab analysis ends up revealing that it's type A positive, matching Nicky's blood type, and suggesting that it might just be Nicky's own blood. Turning his attention to the severed finger itself, Dexter uses a magnifying glass that allows him to notice that there are two hesitant cuts on it, leading him to suspect that the kidnapper was conflicted, possibly due to an emotional tie to Nicky. Shortly after, while trying to explain his theory to Captain Spencer, Dexter notices that the captain has a freshly bandaged arm. When Dexter asks him about it, Spencer casually claims that he hurt himself fixing something at home. Because of that vague excuse, along with the emotional hesitation shown by the kidnapper, Dexter begins to suspect that the blood found on the box could match Nicky's blood type because the kidnapper might in fact be Nicky's own father.
I suddenly realized I might need a new victim dumping ground, even sooner than I thought.
When later on, Spencer is seen purchasing the same lunch boxes that Nicky's abductor had been feeding him, the suspicion is confirmed that Spencer is indeed the kidnapper. Episode 8. Business and Pleasure. Wanting to confirm his theory, Dexter tails Spencer and watches him pay a young, shady-looking man and then give him a plastic bag with something inside of it. Following the shady man, Dexter finds him heading to a house with a garden gnome outside of it. Elsewhere, Harry and LaGuardia arrive in Tampa, where they discover that a psychiatrist has been murdered. After reviewing the psychiatrist's patient files, Harry finds one for none other than Brian Moser, Dexter's younger biological brother. While reading the file, Harry discovers that Brian was released from psychiatric care despite a violent history and multiple mental health issues, including antisocial personality disorder. Moreover, the file notes that Brian harbored resentment over the fact that only Dexter was adopted. And not only that, but Brian also revealed that he's aware that Harry was having an affair with Laura Moser, Dexter and Brian's biological mother, even though she was supposed to merely be an informant for Harry. Later that night, the Miami Metro gets an anonymous tip about Nikki being held at a house owned by the cartel. Arriving at the house with the forensics team, Dexter finds it to be the same exact house with a garden gnome and realizes that Spencer had paid the shady man to plant evidence to stage that Nikki was kidnapped by the cartel. Accompanied by Spencer, the SWAT team storms the house where they hold all of the completely oblivious men and women captive, and once they discover the planted evidence, which turns out to be a basketball jersey belonging to Nikki, Spencer begins putting on a dramatic performance, violently demanding that they give him his son back, knowing full well that they have no idea what he's talking about.
Hey, Bill, where is he? Don't give me that attitude.
Aaron.
Give me my son. Where is he? Where's my goddamn son?
Enraged by the mistreatment and false accusations, one of the cartel members suddenly grabs a gun and initiates a bloody shootout with the SWAT team. Due to the overwhelming numbers and preparation, the gunfight ends tragically for the cartel. All of them are killed while the police suffer only one injured officer. Once the scene is under control, Dexter enters the house with the forensics team. Being the only one who understands what's really going on, Dexter silently observes Spencer's performance, pretending to be a helpless father who's looking for his son. However, Dexter sees through the act though, now fully aware that Spencer is a monster who's willing to let many innocent people die just to keep his secret hidden. Episode 9, Blood Drive. As Dexter becomes certain that he should kill Spencer, Harry vividly recalls what led Dexter to develop his insatiable murderous tendencies. Back in the early 1970s, Harry assigned Laura Mosier with the mission of infiltrating the cartel. Unfortunately though, things went horribly wrong, and Laura was ultimately exposed as a police informant. In a brutal act of retribution, the cartel imprisoned Laura's two sons, Dexter and Brian, inside of a shipping container where they were forced to watch as many innocent victims were tortured and mutilated before their terrified eyes, including their own mother. An unspeakable horror that would shape the two boys forever, planting the seeds of violent, murderous instincts that they would later exhibit. After days of searching, the police finally located the container. Inside, surrounded by mutilated corpses, including Laura's, they found Dexter and Brian, the only two survivors. Filled with guilt over Laura's death, Harry decides to come clean to his wife Doris about his affair, and manages to convince her that they must adopt both Laura's traumatized boys and give them a new life. Although Doris had agreed at first, Brian's violent behavior, including an attempt to suffocate baby Deborah, had made it clear that they couldn't manage his trauma, and ultimately, they kept Dexter, while social services took Brian away. Back in the present at the Miami Metro, Harry reviews Brian's psychological file and learns that he was a child unable to process his mother's death and developed an obsession with Dexter. Understanding this, Harry checks every single crime scene photo and notices that Brian appears in the background of every single one, secretly watching from the crowd, clearly stalking Dexter. As for Dexter himself, he's meanwhile committed to punishing Spencer for all of his crimes. In order to ambush him, Dexter leaves an anonymous blackmail note at Spencer's door, telling him to bring $5,000 to Nikki's favorite arcade, otherwise his secret will be exposed. With no other option, Spencer heads to the arcade, where Dexter catches him off guard by plunging a tranquilizer needle through Spencer's hand and forcefully drives it deeper into his body, rendering him unconscious. And just like Dexter's other victims, Spencer wakes up naked and tied to a table. Before killing him, however, Dexter demands Nikki's location. When Spencer offers the information only in exchange for his freedom, Dexter cuts off one of his fingers, both to get him to speak and to make him feel exactly what his victims endured. Right after, Dexter partially unties Spencer and warns that he'll be back soon, hoping that the powerless man will be more cooperative by then. Finding an opportunity, Spencer manages to escape, but this was all part of Dexter's plan, as he's waiting in his car nearby, preparing to follow Spencer to wherever he's keeping Nikki. Episode 10, Code Blues. As Dexter tails Spencer, his brother Brian is having a therapy session where he reflects on the trauma that shaped him. As Brian goes on to explain some of the violent acts that he committed, the therapist praises him for confronting his past without anger, but still denies his request to see Dexter, warning that he remains an emotional trigger. Furious, Brian viciously kills the therapist by slamming his head against a table, then repeatedly against the window, before beating his body with a fire poker. As for Dexter, he manages to follow Spencer to a decommissioned cargo ship docked at the pier, where Nikki is currently locked in the bottom chamber. Once Dexter jumps at him with a metal bar, Spencer is initially surprised but still manages to overpower Dexter by slamming him with a fire extinguisher. Momentarily free from Dexter, Spencer opens multiple valves and begins flooding the chamber that Nikki is held in. Once he catches up to Spencer, Dexter is forced to let him go for now in order to save Nikki. And diving into the flooded chamber, Dexter breaks the chains binding Nikki and performs CPR until the young boy breathes yet again. As all of this is going on, LaGuardia informs Harry that a dismembered body has been found on a rooftop. Once he finds that the victim is Barbara Plimpton, the social worker who'd separated Dexter and Brian, Harry recognizes that this must be Brian's doing. And indeed, once he scans the nearby rooftops, Harry spots Brian watching on from a distance. Successfully chasing him, Harry then confronts Brian on the rooftop and accuses him of the murders. Once Brian confesses that he is indeed the killer, Harry, knowing that Brian's ultimate goal is to reconnect with Dexter, tells him that he will make sure that that never happens. Trying to reason with Brian, Harry then explains that Dexter doesn't even remember him, as he was too young when everything happened, and that the trauma caused him to block all of those memories out. While trying to arrest Brian, Harry also tells him that if he truly cares for Dexter, he won't say a word to him about his past.
And if you truly love your brother, you're not gonna say a damn thing.
Infuriated by this, Brian refuses to go to prison and insists that if Harry wants to get rid of him, he'll have to kill him. Unable to pull the trigger, Harry hesitates, and Brian takes the gun from him, knocking him out with it, and escapes. With Dexter seemingly nowhere near, Spencer sneaks into his ex-wife Becca's house and knocks out her current boyfriend, Nelson. He then turns his rage towards Becca, chasing her through the house while hurling vicious insults and condemning her for having a 14-year affair while they were married, which heavily implies that Spencer is in fact not Nikki's biological father, an idea that Spencer clings to as a way to excuse all of his horrific actions. Thankfully, Becca managed to lock herself in the bathroom just in time, but as Spencer begins to smash the door in a manic fit, Dexter finally appears and subdues him with a tranquilizer. Remembering that Camilla, a family friend and records clerk at Miami Metro, has generously offered Dexter to take her boat wherever he wanted, he uses it to take Spencer far offshore, where he finally kills Spencer with a sharp slice to the throat. Having realized that there's no better place in the ocean to make someone vanish forever, Dexter then chops up Spencer's body and disposes of it in the deep blue. In the aftermath back at Miami Metro, everyone is thrilled that Nikki has been found and are led to believe that Spencer was killed by the cartel. For his meticulous work, Tanya offers Dexter a full-time position in the forensics department, an offer that Dexter happily accepts, especially as he knows that he'll now have endless access to future targets. Things seem to be looking up for Dexter's sister Deborah as well, as she announces to him and Harry that she's been accepted into the police academy. Inspired by role models like Tanya, LaGuardia, and Camilla, and moved by what the department did in the search for Nikki, she knows that this is where she belongs. Though surprised by Deborah's decision, both Dexter and Harry approve, expressing their pride in her. While the Morgans revel in celebration, dancing the joy of all of their recent successes, Brian secretly watches on from a distance, clearly indicating that his vendetta against Harry is far from over, and he plans on continuing to stalk Dexter, hoping to one day reconnect with his brother. And that wraps up Dexter Original Sin Season 1. So what are everyone's thoughts on this new prequel series? After the entire original series and Dexter New Blood, are we tired of this tale of the good guy serial killer yet, or are you guys still hungry for more? As always, let us know what you think in the comments below, as we always look forward to hearing your thoughts. Again, thanks for checking out this recap and for watching through until the end. If you guys want to support our channel, you can do so via YouTube memberships, Patreon, or Buy Me a Coffee, and unlock some cool extras in the process. If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend or just drop us a like, and if you want to see more great content from us in the future, don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back soon with more recaps, but for now, BingeBot is logging off.